Hey guys, welcome back. We have Dhruv here from DeFi, the head of DeFi on Flare Networks, and we had some exciting updates yesterday. XRP is being traded on Hyperliquid, so we want to hear more about it, like the obvious parts of this move, and then also want to hear about the not so obvious parts of what's next with this kind of integrations.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me here, Whale. Steven, it's good seeing you guys again.
Same.
Yeah, so I can hop right into it. I think I can provide some overview as to what the decision making here kind of looks like and what the growth vectors are and why we thought this was a good idea. So Hyperliquid has been arguably one of the best performing dApps, I would say, in the entirety of crypto this year, for a lot of different reasons. Just the way that they approach the exchange and building out specific mechanisms, and then also starting to build out their overall ecosystem. I think a lot of the institutional players that we speak to have been very excited about Hyperliquid, including a lot of the trading firms that we've been interfacing with. And so Hyperliquid has grown their open interest and started off as a perps platform. And their open interest is in the single digit high billions and should hopefully cross over 10 billion in open interest sometime soon. And they've become the premier outlet for trading on chain, I would say, in terms of like order book execution and really being used like a centralized exchange, right? Now, it operates very differently from a lot of the other EVM ecosystems, and it has become like this liquidity hub for a lot of different assets that are being bridged in and out via Layer 0, who is obviously a close partner of ours. So the thinking behind FXRP and why we thought bringing it to Hyperliquid would be very cool and important is that XRP perps currently trade on Hyperliquid. There's about 250 million in open interest on XRP perps, meaning that people have a positional value of like cumulatively of $250 million. Generally, when people are trading perps, they sometimes hedge or they sometimes want to trade spot. And XRP spot hasn't been available on Hyperliquid, and we were very surprised to see that. And being the issuers of FXRP, our goal is to get FXRP to be as widely traded and used in other ecosystems, even past just Flare, right? So Flare will always be the liquidity hub of FXRP, and it is essentially the gateway into the EVM ecosystem. But expanding XRP past just Flare's ecosystem is critical because then people are using FXRP in other ecosystems, and it directly benefits Flare for a lot of reasons. So we didn't see any XRP spot market on Hyperliquid, and we said, hey, this is a really easy way for us to get institutions aware of FXRP, bring it to the Hyper EVM ecosystem where a lot of top-notch builders are, and start plugging in FXRP into the Hyperliquid ecosystem. So it starts with the spot market, and strategically, that's why we thought it made a lot of sense. Also, I mentioned this in one of my tweets. The thing is that on-chain order books are really hard to execute, and this is one of the best order books to do it. And so if there are liquidations or things like that happen within our ecosystem, accessing order book level liquidity is a lot deeper in a lot of cases than AMMs can be at specific times, right? And so the ability to be able to bridge into Hyperliquid in less than a minute and then be able to buy or sell FXRP makes running liquidators a lot easier on chain, which makes the general ecosystem just a lot safer. Because if you have a loan, or let's say people are borrowing against XRP, they don't they haven't paid back their loan, or let's say that loan has to be liquidated. A liquidator's job is to take on that FXRP, pay back the specific protocol, and then go liquidate the XRP elsewhere or the FXRP elsewhere. And Hyperliquid really can enable that order book execution where we can now go liquidate or have our liquidators essentially go liquidate on Hyperliquid. And so overall, it made a lot of sense. And I think that there's going to be a lot of expansion within the Hyper EVM ecosystem as well, too, and start to bring over those users to Flare as well. So overall, net positive. We're seeing a lot of media outlets pick it up, and we're slowly going to start to grow out the market. So there's more trading happening there as well too. And there's also now specific exotic strategies people can run, specifically, which has also been very popular this year, the delta neutral trade or the basis trade that Athena has been doing. And what Athena essentially does is that they buy spot and they short the perps, and now that is possible for XRP on Hyperliquid. So people who want to buy FXRP then short the XRP perp can now earn extra yield doing that. So if you have stables, you buy some XRP and then you short the XRP perp, you can now earn the funding rate. And so there's a lot of different avenues and ways that this kind of opens up for us, and I'm super excited about launching FXRP on Hyperliquid.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've been checking it out a little bit. It took me a little bit to be able to go back from Flare or from Hyperliquid into Flare, but you said something on your tweet that it's going to be one click at some point, right?
Yep. Yeah. So here's the thing. Right now, to get to Hyperliquid with XRP, you have XRPL, XRP, you bridge into Flare, and then you have to use Stargate to then bridge it into Hyperliquid. And at Hyperliquid, you have to have an active account, right? So the thing is like people aren't used to having active accounts at Hyperliquid. So then you gotta like have a couple dollars there to essentially initiate your account. And then on the way back, because of the way the signature schemes work, you have to transfer into Hyper EVM, and then from Hyper EVM, you have to move it back to Flare. So in terms of the bridging, we have the pipes, but the thing is the user experience isn't perfectly clean yet. So I'm working with the team to essentially make it one click, or essentially concatenate those signatures to be able to move it across those ecosystems more seamlessly, specifically from Flare directly into Hyperliquid and Hyperliquid directly back to Flare, and be able to like essentially abstract away account initiation on Flare, or let's say a small amount of gas on Hyperliquid to be able to move it. You can these things away with a one-click bridge. And so that's part of the pipeline, and we're definitely working on it, but we wanted to launch the market because we knew people wanted XRP Spot on Hyperliquid, and we know it can be big. So we just wanted to be first to market and just ensure that we have a lot of different avenues as to like people actually just trading, like buying and selling XRP on Hyperliquid, and then eventually we can start adding in like the more user-friendly experiences for our user base.
For sure. And then can you tap into like the Hyperliquid market for like aggregated swaps on Flare? Like I know that the liquidity, I mean, it's there, but it's not massive. But if somebody wanted to do like a really big swap, could, I don't know,
Yeah.
OpenOcean
So
tap into that liquidity as well?
yeah, so aggregators will be able to tap into that liquidity for sure, right? And as these aggregators, like they can use any type of DEX that they want in order to give you a quote, right? So what we're seeing a lot in crypto is like intent-based like swaps. So things like Bebop, which is an RFQ system where market makers can essentially give you a quote on a large size, or Cow Swap, if you guys have heard of it, right? Where you essentially say, hey, I want to buy or sell X amount, and then there's like an RFQ or a quote, or it gets batched and then someone buys the batch, right? And so essentially these intent-based swaps are a lot of what crypto has been moving towards, including Solana, which has been using prop AMMs for most of its volume these days. So what you're seeing on Solana is there's this protocol called Humidify, which is processing like 70-80% of Solana's transactions, which essentially is just someone saying, I'll buy this batch or I'll trade you this, I'll take on the inventory on chain, and then I'll essentially hedge off or sell it somewhere else off chain. But they're providing liquidity on chain, but being able to move around the inventory to get the best quotes and prices. So Hyperliquid essentially is and operates like a centralized exchange, specifically Hypercore, and it'll now allow RFQ systems, intent-based traders, prop AMMs to be able to essentially use that liquidity and trade and provide better pricing on FXRP. And so we've been talking to a few of the like these RFQ systems to essentially allow for large buys and sells on FXRP for institutions.
That is amazing. Yeah, no, it's getting very exciting. I feel like the news and updates from Flare just keep going. And even if the market is down, Flare is busy building, and that's amazing. Very exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm most excited because we're starting to get all of the infrastructure in place, right? Like we're starting to grow our lending protocols, and I think there should hopefully be some more news there as well too soon. And we're starting to get liquidity up and running. And then now it's like, let's get the infrastructure on top of that. We've been talking about Flare smart accounts that'll help start running more strategies, more liquidity moving around, and then plugging in like the CDFI integrations, hopefully, that we can get, and get some exchanges involved, and just kind of turn it into this like big hub of XRP. And look, if you're bullish on the market, right, and you think generally like things will eventually go up, and you think like potentially XRP can go up, potentially Flare can go up, then like all of our TVL is pretty much in XRP right now. If XRP, let's say even 2x's, our TVL is going to 2x. And it's starting to grow to a point of where it's like critical mass, right? Like it's getting pretty big here. And so obviously TVL is not the only metric that matters, but like I think overall, like our trading systems are getting better on chain. Our liquidity is getting better, and we're starting to bring like institutional dApps to our chain that truly will care about Flare more. So look, price can go up or down. I can't really comment on that. But I'm very excited about what we're building, and I think it is like real, like very, very real.
For sure. I mean, I was checking another XRP product. I'm not going to say which one, and it has not changed in the last 4 months, and Flare has been growing steadily. So that speaks by itself, I think. So, yeah, that's been great. Another question for you. I saw there was a workshop about redeeming FXRP from other EVM chains. So does that mean that you're already thinking about FXRP on other chains as well, other than
Yeah.
Hype?
So the thing about Hyperliquid is that it's the first CVM chain we're moving to, just because they have the order book, and it's really easy to get market maker liquidity and have it operate like a centralized exchange in terms of like how FXRP exists. So that was the first EVM chain and the first product that we really expanded to. I am very interested in getting FXRP on other EVM ecosystems that want XRP exposure, and I'm gladly like willing to work with like a lot of those ecosystems. So right now it's like Flare is the hub, and we want to build out the hub as well too. But we're also speaking with other partners that are on these other chains to be able to get FXRP integrated as well too. So as those specific opportunities come up, I'm very willing to move FXRP into any other ecosystems that have strategies for us, and like are strategically worth it to be there.
For sure. And then what about, you mentioned Solana. Is there any way or plans to move FXRP to Solana or Sui, for example?
So it depends, right? Like we could move it to those ecosystems, and very much could. But remember, every time you have a new ecosystem, you need to build up liquidity in the specific dApps. You need to be able to like essentially scale that liquidity up as the usage on that chain goes up. And to me, I'm not opposed to it, but again, like I only want to move to specific chains that make enough sense for us to continue expanding to, and have a specific reason as to why we should be there. For Hyperliquid, it made sense because they didn't have an XRP spot market. Now the entire ecosystem knows we're there, and they're starting to hit us up because they want to do things like XRP options on chain. They want to consider using it as a borrowable asset within their specific lending protocols. There's other markets that want us to get listed with FXRP. So I can now start like attacking the entire ecosystem because we are the XRP asset that's one-to-one on that chain right now, right? And that is growing. So we can move to Solana, sure. Yeah, like I'm not opposed to it. We can move to Sui, but like there has to be a strategic reason for us to be there. Simply bridging in the asset with no liquidity means that people can't really do anything.
For sure. No, yeah, that part I understand. But I mean, at least what I'm understanding from what you're saying is that at some point, that liquidity can be shared across ecosystems or across chains.
For sure.
So
Yep. As long as
wouldn't that solve a lot of the problems that you're talking about?
Not necessarily, right? Because so first off, FXRP would have to be enabled as an OFT on Solana, and if that's possible for layer 0 to essentially enable, that's the first question, or Sui for this case. And then you still need some liquidity in the dexes, like so like we still have a lot of liquidity in SparkDex, and I think SparkDex will grow like decently well as well, because the liquidity is always there in SparkDex versus an order book can change at any given time as well. So like you still need the ability to swap on most of the lending or like most of the swap protocols on chain. So we not only would have to go to Jupiter, Orca, Radium if we were on Solana, and then we would have to stand up liquidity pools in those specific places, and also be able to like get into the lending protocols there as well too, and then all of this specific DeFi dApps that exist there too, right? So it's not just, hey, like let's just launch the asset and then there's liquidity. You still have to work with the partners for them to be able to stand up support for the specific asset.
For sure. Well, I mean, I think it's step by step. As the ecosystem grows, then there's going to be enough FXRP laying around that there's going to be enough for other protocols to have them. Thank you so much, Drew. And then last question, what were you most excited about 2025 and what are you most excited about 2026?
Yeah, when I look back at 2025, I think the best part was by far and away just the community response to FXRP. And I think it's been a big hit, right? Like we have over 87 million dollars worth, 87 million units of XRP, which is close to almost $200 million. Like in Q4, Flare went from having 0 FXRP to essentially having like the amount of XRP to the point where institutions are starting to look. And so that's been, I think, by far the best part of 2025. And it took a lot of years in building and design decision changes to be able to get to that point. And it was really cool to get off the ground. Since then, I think the Flare team has been moving at lightning speed. And a lot of that translates into 2026. We now have the Hyperliquid launch, a lot of which like the DeFi team has been very excited about and just enhancing liquidity. And we have more in terms of DeFi that's coming out. We had Enosis CDPs launch that have been doing decently well. Kinetic has gotten a lot of FXRP deposits. We got Firelight off the ground. All of that happened in Q4, right? All of it happened because we laid a lot of groundwork in 2025 up until Q4 and then launched most of it. Since then, we've been getting everything to market that we've been thinking about since post FXRP. I mean, just think about it. Since September, since we launched FXRP, we're at 86 million units, $200 million in less than 6 months, guys. Like we're growing pretty fast here, and we're now starting to get actively managed vaults off the ground, which I think are going to be pretty big in 2026 because they'll manage a lot of the DeFi farming and like the DeFi positions for you. And you're seeing we launched the Upshift vault in like maybe 3 weeks ago now, like right before Christmas. We already have like $6 to $7 million worth of deposits there, and they're continuing to grow. And now we're going to take those vaults cross chain. So being able to essentially launch some vaults on Hyperliquid, maybe in some other EVM ecosystems. So for us, like you ask, are we going to take FXRP cross chain? Maybe not. But how can we get other XRP, CBXRP, WXRP into FXRP and start running strategies is like the core focus here as well too. So bridging FXRP necessarily, I don't know. Omnichain vaults I'm very excited about. And so actively managed vaults, and then obviously unlocking more borrow lends, and then getting the infrastructure stuff for 2026. So 2025, I think the FXRP launch by far and away was the best part. I think for 2026, I'm most excited for just the continual growth. Like can we hit that inflection point of like getting massive exchanges and institutions here and get billions of dollars worth of FXRP? Because we're at 200 million in a few months. How do we get that to $1 billion worth of FXRP or $2 billion worth? And then all of a sudden you're looking at one of the largest DeFi ecosystems that exists.
For sure. No, I'm so bullish on both XRP and Flare. I mean, you guys have done a great job, and like I said before, I do think that the launch of FXRP was like there's no other word but like extremely successful. So congratulations on all that hard work and the infrastructure that you have built.
Appreciate your support. Appreciate the community. Plenty of work and groundwork left to do. So I think you guys are gonna have a fun few months, especially here in 2026 for things that we're doing. I mean, Hyperliquid first week of January. I think there's going to be a couple other big launches that you guys will be pretty excited about as well too. So we'll definitely chat as they start to roll out.
Awesome. Thank you so much.